Hey everyone, welcome to HBCU Game Day. We're getting closer and closer to the new year, and that means we need to put our final little button, our final little bow on the 2022 college football season. I'm Tolly Carr from Atlanta, and let's bring in now my number one partner from Jackson, Mississippi. He is with Thee Pregame Show. He's my man, Uncle Neely. Neely, what's up, brother? I hope you have had a great Christmas, man. Good to catch up with you. You came to Atlanta. We did not even see one another.
Hey, man, it was a wonderful Christmas. It's a great holiday season. Looking forward to a prosperous and healthy new year. And you're right, man. We were in Atlanta for the Celebration Bowl, and our paths did not cross.
It's always work. It's always about the work. All right, let's get into it, man. So much has I think the last time we talked, the question I left you with was, the next time that we talk, will Deion Sanders be the head coach at Jackson State? We all know that answer now. So that was only a few weeks ago, but so much has happened. Let's start at the Celebration Bowl, man. That was one hell of a game. Jackson State came up short. Kudos to North Carolina Central on getting the win. Your overall thoughts on a game that, look, JSU was dead in the water. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, they team up with an amazing catch that will probably be overshadowed in time because they did not win the game. But just the excitability of that game, how did it hit for you?
You know, I don't know where to start, Tolly, because it was a phenomenal ball game. Hats off to North Carolina Central on the victory. But the real winners, was the television audience out there, man. To have a bowl game go into overtime, to have Travis Hunter score on two passes from Shedeur Sanders, and one of those was a 4th and 10 with 7 seconds left to force overtime. ESPN, ABC, the John Grant with the Celebration Bowl, what a production it was. One of the things I was very proud to see was so many folks in the stands and in the city representing various HBCUs. The game was so much bigger than Jackson State and North Carolina Central that was also the big win. So hats off to NCCU for that win. Jackson State wanted to go 13-0. That was the goal all season. But what better way to go out than an overtime loss like that, man, that just puts the Celebration Bowl on the map as far as its entertainment value to fans out there watching.
Looking back on it now, having just a little bit of distance from the game, did you feel like the team on the Jackson State side, do you feel like they were fully focus? Was there distractions because there were so many things happening in the news cycle? What did you look back and think about the team and what they went through going into that game with so much surrounding them?
I totally understand folks out there saying that this team was distracted because Coach Prime had announced he was leaving. But I feel, being embedded with the team, that was one of the best weeks and a half leading to a game for preparation and focus. The guys were dialed in. Each week has been the goal to go 1-0 so we can finally get to 12-0 with a SWAC championship and then go 13-0. So as much as the noise outside was probably at a high volume to folks, it wasn't like that internally. These guys were focused and dialed in, including Coach Prime himself. I just think what happened, man, we ran into an opponent that was well coached, well prepared, and they well executed their game plan. It's hard to say that you got beat or you took one and you're scoring, 40 points. Shedeur Sanders goes for, 4 touchdown passes. So it's hard to just say that, they beat us. But what didn't happen is that defense always travels, and defense did not travel to Atlanta. NCCU had a hell of a game plan, utilizing the run with the QB draw, and they controlled the clock. This was the first time this year in 13 consecutive games where someone had the ball more than we had it. And they had it almost double at one point going into halftime. So they kept that offense with Travis Hunter playing both ways. They kept that offense on the sideline. And when Jackson State would get in, we would score fast. But they just dominated so much the clock with their ground game and miracle forcing it into overtime. But I don't think, Tolly, that it was distractions. Keep in mind, this was a team that week one going into that strong FAMU SWAC East opponent in Miami didn't have running water for a week and put up 56 points. These guys know how to work around distractions and how to work around noise. So we lost. Hats off to the opponent, but I don't think it was because of a job announcement or pending move to Colorado.
All right, so much to hit on. Let's try to quickly get through the plate here. All right, T.C. Taylor was named head coach before the Celebration Bowl. Coach Sanders would complete what he started and coached the team through the game here in Atlanta. Everyone on the team seemed super excited when Ashley Robinson announced that TC would be taking over the job.
Yeah, because TC Taylor's the man. This was a guy, when you talk about year one with an asterisk, the first fall season for Coach Prime, he was offensive coordinator. Then he was moved over to wide receivers coach. He has always been a well-respected coach on this staff. He's well-respected amongst JSU alums and donors and supporters. He was a record-setting quarterback and wide receiver here at Jackson State. His wide receiver records still stand. So everyone was excited about him being the coach in waiting. But just to rewind a little bit, there was a lot of angst in the air about Coach Prime coaching that final bowl game. And the reason it was because it was so abnormal. When you look at Brian Kelly, who leaves Notre Dame to go to LSU, leaves in the middle of the night, doesn't really talk to the team or the staff. He's just out of there. But this coach and Coach Prime, he wanted to finish the right way. He wanted to coach the bowl game. And more importantly, he understood that him coaching the bowl game would preserve some key players to stay out of that transfer portal and all work together and start with a finish. So you look at that game and you saw the impact of Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders. You saw the impact of Alejandro Mata with the extra points. Just think what that game is if they're not there because the fans didn't want Coach Prime to coach and he left. And he was going to take them with him. So I think all is well that ends well, but it's now time to start that TC Taylor era, and I think he's going to do big things at Jackson State.
All right, so immediately after the Celebration Bowl, the early signing period in December hits, and everybody's wondering, man, what's Jackson State going to do? Or are they going to, I've seen a lot. The Coach Prime is going to gut the team. Everybody's going to Colorado. I think you guys at Jackson State had the #1 signing class for HBCUs. And then coming out of that, there were some players in the transfer portal, but a lot of those players, or at least some of them, Neely, you can help me out because there's been a lot of names, a lot of motion, jumped in and then jumped right back out, and they're returning to Jackson State. So when you look at what TC Taylor is going to be working with heading into the spring and into the fall, Neely, how would you rank what's coming back for Jackson State?
I rank it high. Not only what's coming back, Solly, because we live in this new space. The transfer portal is still relatively new to us. And we have to keep in mind that no matter if you retain a head coach or not, at the end of each season, you have to re-recruit your current players because the portal is here and it's here to stay. And folks are going to always look to leave for better opportunity, whatever they define it as for opportunity. Who knows? Here in Jackson, it could be, just because of the drinking water issues that we have. So sometimes it's not about football. It's about being close to home or close to another family member. But it's here to stay, and it's going to be an impact. So you have to re-recruit your current players. So a lot of folks did hit that portal. But TC Taylor and Coach Otis Ridley, Coach O as he's affectionately called, were able to re-recruit them to get them to sign. So now Gaddy was in the portal. He's coming back to Jackson State. Defensive end Antonio Doyle is coming back to Jackson State. There's a lot of guys on defense that tested those waters in the portal coming back. Savion Wilkerson, one of the leading rushers in the SWAC, over 1,000 yards for Jackson State, is coming back. So TC Taylor has a core group that he's going to be coaching, and they understand his coaching style. But he's also added, just in the early signing period, 14 players. And I imagine about 8 of those 14 are going to be some immediate impact as he gets ready for that final signing day push going into February.
Is the quarterback for next year on the roster right now? Do you think? Do you hope? What are your thoughts?
I saw he signed a couple of QBs in this early signing period. So I can't say he's on the roster right now. The way this portal works and transferring works and all those kind of things. We look at what the brother from Detroit is doing, James Houston, who left Jackson State after 1 year. Keep in mind, James Houston didn't get to Jackson State until the summer right before the fall. So we don't know what this roster is going to be, who the quarterback is going to be. Even when you bring a guy back like Savion Wilkerson, you don't know that he's going to be the starting running back. I think you got to get through signing day in February. You got to get through spring ball in March and April, and you got to get through summer camp. So I think around July, August, we'll really know who's going to be who on this roster. But I tell you what, TC Taylor is going to demand the most from him and get the most out of him. And I'm predicting Jackson State is right back at the top of the tier on that SWAC East again.
Well, you can't replace Shedeur Sanders pound for pound. Technically you can, but that would, you would be hitting a home run to just have somebody come in and just do every single thing that Shedeur did. He did so much. What with him going to Colorado to join his dad, What do you think is going to be the thing that is missed the most from his either or and both his leadership and his on-field ability as a quarterback?
Consistency. Shedeur Sanders was one of those guys that game after game got you somewhere between 69% completion all the way up to 76% completion. You're looking at halftime of Celebration Bowl, he was 13 of 14 going into the half. And that's game in and game out. Some games are 2 touchdowns, some games are 4 touchdowns. But as it relates to the consistency of his completions, the completion percentage, I think that's one of the just things that just marks him as a quarterback is that he doesn't miss a lot of receivers and he puts the ball right where they can get it. So it's going to be hard to replace, those numbers. But TC Taylor being a former quarterback, being a record-setting receiver, being the offensive coordinator in the first undefeated in conference SWAC championship last year, being the wide receiver coach in this undefeated conference season in SWAC championship this year, I think TC Taylor knows about developing chemistry between a quarterback and wide receivers. So the names are going to be new on the back of the jerseys, but I don't think the wins and losses are going to change much. I think it's going to be another dominant year.
You said this a couple times. Give us a history lesson, Neely. Why did TC as a player switch from quarterback to wide receiver?
Just being the right guy in the right time and understanding that there was another guy that could do more. We all remember Robert Superman Kent was in town. And when it came time to, okay, TC, this guy needs to get the ball, TC happily went to receiver, and that record-setting quarterback made him a record-setting wide receiver. So all's well that ends well. TC came to Jackson State as a quarterback, left out a record-setting receiver. So he knows how to move pieces around and get the best out of folks because it happened with him.
All right, so Neely, let's get to the good stuff, man. There was lots of feelings, nothing but feelings in the air. I think we have heard, read, seen it all when it comes to the departure and how people felt about it with Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State. Let me start with you. What were your thoughts? What were your feelings when you knew that it was official, there was no turning back, he was going to Colorado?
Overjoyed at what this man had accomplished in 2 calendar years, which had 3 football seasons in them. To go undefeated in conference once is a major thing and win the conference championship. To go undefeated in conference again and win the conference championship is just amazing. So 2 back-to-back undefeated seasons in conference with 2 back-to-back conference championships, even though you came up short in the Celebration Bowl. The Celebration Bowl only begins when you win your conference championship. And to do that in undefeated fashion is history in making itself. That recruiting class that he was able to bring in back-to-back, and it just set the ground stage for what you see TC Taylor being able to do with his recruiting. Now that the taste of Jackson State is in folks' mouth and it's a buzz out there, we're just building off of it. So I was elated when I heard that he was moving on because a couple of things. He's done all that he can do here. You go undefeated 2 times in a row. And then it also opens up the doors for some other coaches to get some experience and growth, not only at Jackson State, but those that are going to be moving on with him. So I saw no downside to it whatsoever at all. I thought it was a great move for him and an even greater move for Jackson State.
When it comes to social media, back in the day, people that call into the radio station, you're really only looking at, somewhere 1 to 3% of the people that are out there that are going to be the boisterous ones, no matter what they have to say. So what I'm about to say does not symbolize what the world is thinking, what America is thinking. This is my America cam right here. But Neely, were you surprised at what people had to say when there was just a lot of conversation, from high-profile people to just your average Joe to, the kid living in his grandma's basement, on Facebook? There was a lot said. Were you surprised at the tenor that a lot of the just the feelings, man, that were out there?
I had to be surprised. And the reason I'm saying I had to be surprised is because I expected better. I expected more. I'm in agreement with you, Tolly, that just because it is a minority doesn't mean that their voices are not being heard. And if you see 100 comments on something and 85 are positive to neutral and 15 are just out of this world cuckoo and negative, those 15 get traction. And some of the stuff that was being said about Coach Prime and his departure made 0 sense to me. And for those folks to have JSU names by them or, be folks you can identify even made less sense. But I think it came from a place of just being hurt, man. And hurt people lash out, people grieve differently, and folks are entitled to grieve. So he was a guy, NFL Hall of Famer, with the pro football that he played, just as much of a Hall of Famer in broadcasting, journalism, and marketing. And you were on the top of the world with him for 2 seasons. And then he says, okay, I'm out of here. That initial reaction was pain. But I think when people see what T.C. Taylor brings to the table and see that it's not going to be a major drop-off from this passing of the baton, that some of those wounds will begin to self-heal and we'll move on and really celebrate what this guy meant to Jackson State. And most importantly, what he will continue to mean to Jackson State, because he's always going to be the former coach of JSU. And with his relationships and business and gravitas and marketing, that doesn't put a cap or a stopgap on what he can do for JSU and HBCUs just because he's now in Colorado. So I think, a lot of times you have to do like Michelle Obama said, talked about taking the high road. And I saw, a measurable amount of our fans out there, not necessarily alums, but fans who didn't take the high road. And you have to see that and sense that because it's real.
My takeaway from it was a couple of different things. Number one is I really want the fans to understand the power that they have and the role that they play. I thought it was a miscalculation to have that much toxicity out there and expect something good to come behind that. It's almost like poisoning the well. I was just many times yelling at my phone, stop it, stop. What are you doing? Like, this is not the play. Like, this is not how you respond when you're accustomed to success and you've been there before. Even if you're not, fake it until you can make it. Like, it really struck me as it just wasn't a good look, just from my standpoint. And I understand the pain. Look, Deion Sanders created, well, let me fully explain that. The people's response to Deion Sanders created a lot of great opportunities for HBCU game day. Deion Sanders has never showed up here at the studio and said, hey, Dolly, brother, hey, what's up, man? Here's what's up, dog? Here's $1 million. He never said that. What occurred was people responded to the content that he was providing for us, and that your response to that creates revenue, marketing, and all that. That power lies within the people. So what I really wanted people to understand was, hey, look at what we did together. We rallied around the popularity of Deion Sanders, and we created a movement across a plethora of platforms, and we can continue to do that. But to act like the sky was falling and the bottom fell out, I was like, guys, it was you all along. It was your power combined with the man's popularity that made these things happen.
Thought it well said, man. Well said. If I had my soundtrack right here, I'd just hit the applause button, the standing ovation button, because that is exactly succinctly what took place here. Deion Sanders is Deion Sanders, whether he's here, there, near, or far. What happened was exactly as you put it, our reaction to his proximity to us. And that can be replicated no matter who is here with us. And we also have to appreciate that there is not going to be a rapid degradation with his departure. So if you're providing something out there and you grew 100%, yeah, you may lose 15% because he's gone, but that's still up a net 85. And we have to appreciate the growth capital that he gave us in brand recognition and brand ID and marketing capacities and so forth. So I do think, and I love how you put it, poisoning the well. I do think there was some poisoning of the well. I do think we have to recognize that the way you treat somebody on their way out is a good indicator to future people coming in as to how they may be treated. So if I'm dating Beyonce and she wants to leave and I do what we did to Deion Sanders, it's going to be hard for me to holler at Michelle. Yeah. Like, it just don't work that way. You have to show some magnanimous nature and take the high road and really celebrate what people did while they were with you, even if you're mad and pissed off, because the how you treat somebody when they depart is a great signal to the next person as they come. And I don't care if that next person is an inside guy like a T.C. Taylor or Ed Reed that Bethune-Cookman just got. The eyes of the world were watching on the fan fervor as to Deion's departure, and you better believe it had an impact.
Emotional intelligence. It is one of the most underrated things. It's all right to feel emotion. It's a part of life, but you got to think about like what you put out there. Like, take a second, breathe. And I think another thing, Neely, where this was proven, it was such a great mirror. Everybody is a content creator. Everybody is a content creator. Some people get paid through revenue. Other people get paid through attention. And so I saw so many incredibly lame hot takes on this, but because it drew traction and there was 100 comments and 300 comments, it seems like the next person just wanted to say something even more outrageous to get their 300 comments. It was just like, it just became a troll fest, in my opinion. I
agree with you, Tyler. You can have a pretty good restaurant, and you can be known for a pretty good burger, and people flock there because Deion Sanders ate there. Well, when Deion Sanders stops eating there, if your food ain't good, so at some point, yes, you can use folks like a Deion Sanders as a driver. You can use them as an accelerant. But when that accelerant is removed, you got to stand on your product. And there's not a lot of quality product that was doing the clickbait stuff with his departure, even leading up to his potential departure. How many rumors were out there just for clickbait? Well, I heard he's going here. I heard he's going there. Remember, there was allegedly a contract in Florida in place. And all that stuff turned out to not be true, but it was just fanning the flames of emotional lack of intelligence, unintelligence, if you will. And then when it all came down to, that the rubber met the road and he was departing, some of what was out there, man, just has a direct impact on how Walmart wants to deal with you, on how Under Armour wants to deal with you, on how Michael Strahan and his suits wants to deal with you, or how future coaches or potential coaches want to deal with you. And we have to recognize that what you put out there in this market space reverberates and come back tenfold.
Yeah, don't fumble the bag. Like, the bag was still there, and could be still there. I'm not saying it's gone, but don't kick the bag because the man that brought the bag in left.
That's key, Tolly. It's not gone because in as much as a Walter Payton, who, may he rest in peace, has been away from Jackson State 50 years, or Lynn Barney, or Jackie Slater, or Robert Brazile, or even a T.C. Taylor or a James Houston. These people are always connected to your university, and how you treat them upon their exit really sends a signal to other people who may want to come, or other people who may want to offer products and services in lieu of the person that's now gone. So you always are going to win exercising, as you put it, emotional intelligence. It may burn your pride a little bit to do so, but it's going to help you win more in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of comings and goings, we have another NFL Hall of Famer considered to be arguably the best person at his position. We've seen the best cornerback in league history in Deion Sanders in the SWAC. Now we have the best free safety in Ed Reed, who has just touched down at Bethune-Cookman this week. Neely, I listened to Skip, Shannon talk about it this morning on his show with Skip, and, a lot of conversation is out there that, this is a door that Deion Sanders kind of helped pave that, maybe not, I'm sure, let's put it like this. I'm sure Ed Reed called Deion Sanders and said, look, man, give me the skinny on what this is all about.
Ain't no doubt. Ed Reed and Coach Prime have a wonderful, long, historic relationship, personal and professional. And there's no way that Ed Reed considers Bethune-Cookman and doesn't talk to his good friend, Deion Sanders, who just wrapped up at Jackson State. And Deion Sanders is not one of those guys that's going to hold back. He's going to tell you what happened and what has happened and what things you can look for to avoid and what things you're going to run into that you can accelerate from. I know that conversation, I should say conversations, took place. I think Ed Reed, man, is going to be a wonderful addition for Bethune-Cookman, wonderful addition for the SWAC East and the SWAC, and for HBCUs, because here we go again. And you want to reach a point to where it's not a here we go again, that it's just a mainstay. And, you look at Eddie George and you look at Deion Sanders and you look at a Hugh over in Grambling and now Ed Reed. I think that this is going to pick up pace, not slow down. And Ed is positioned to have some different kinds of success there in Bethune-Cookman. A lot of times when you're working at an HBCU, there are systemic challenges, but sometimes those are exacerbated when you are a public funded or state institution. And where there may be more financial challenges to be in a private institution, there are also some things that are not encumbering your success to make things happen. So Ed has the relationships and the ability that a Deion Sanders has. So I think that you're going to see that same kind of attention go to Bethune-Cookman and that small black college in Florida and what they're going to be about for the next 3 to 4 seasons and see what happens there. I'm excited about it. They picked a wonderful guy, and I hope that they have learned by watching Jackson State the past 2 calendar years of 3 football seasons that when you got a unicorn, let the unicorn be a unicorn. Don't treat him like a horse with a horn. Treat him like a unicorn because it's not a horse with a horn. It's a unicorn.
Let him cook. Let him cook. All right, Neely, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I just want everybody to see your face.
Every time you say that, I always say something.
I'm not saying don't say anything. I'm just saying you don't have to. What I'm about to say. Imagine, hypothetically, a world where Jackson State loses Deion Sanders and replaces him with the Hall of Famer in Ed Reed. That could have been crazy, Neely. No disrespect to TC Taylor. I'm just free thinking here. That would have been the most unprecedented, craziest thing ever in a great way.
I'll start with the no disrespect. I really believe that Jackson State got an exceptional hire in TC Taylor, who has been born and raised for this job and is going to bring to it all the skills and tools that he can bear to make this be a championship program continuing after Coach Prime. Having said that, and I mean no slight toward Bethune-Cookman at all, but when you have a Bethune-Cookman job open and a UAPB job open and a Jackson State job open, let's be clear, the most attractive job of those 3 is Jackson State. But I would have to say again, Tolly, although I don't have any kind of data to back this up or, a text message from somebody to support it, I got to believe with the relationship that Ed Reed has with Deion Sanders and with the relationship that Ed Reed has with social media, I'm sure what we were just discussing, the vitriol that was coming Coach Prime's way after winning 2 SWAC championships, after doing it in an undefeated fashion, after almost losing your life, almost losing your leg, but then settling on losing 2 toes, and you still get treated like that on the way out the door, it's not really something someone else is going to be just, oh, let me go take that job. And again, I'm glad that TC Taylor got the job, but just taking, your hypothetical of what would it have been like for that baton to be passed from the greatest cornerback in history to the greatest safety in history, the world will never know. But I am looking forward to what he accomplishes at Bethune-Cookman because I know he's going to do some great things there.
What would you say? You were embedded with Coach Prime the entire time he was there, coming out of that spring season. If Ed Reed were to call you and say, "Hey, Neely, man, give me your best advice," what would you say to Ed Reed?
Best advice as far as had it come to Jackson State, or best advice going to Bethune?
With his job now at Bethune, if he calls you today and say, "Neely, I'm starting today at 12 o'clock. Give me your best advice."
Best advice would be to utilize social media in every way that you can, because there's not going to be a better person to tell your story than yourself. And so a lot of the things that get out or rumors that take place are out there on the social media space. Tyler, you and I got enough gray hair that we can remember when you said you don't go to battle with the guy that buys ink by the barrel, meaning you don't fight the press. Well, now you live in a world where the press is electronic and it can be controlled by individuals. So I would say control your narrative, man. Get you a social media team. Use it for recruitment. Use it to tell your story. Do all those wonderful things that you can do with it, and get you an inner circle. Get your inner circle made up of BCU folks, whether they're local business leaders or alums or just supporters. Get you a kitchen cabinet, if you will, that you can trust, and go forth and do great things. But just understand this, Coach Reed and Bethune-Cookman, everybody that smiles is not a friend.
Indeed. I'm sure he has learned that lesson, and just know that won't be any different at any place that you're coaching. Coach Prime kept a lot of receipts. He recorded every single thing. We were given access that was unprecedented. That scares the bejesus out of a lot of people. Neely, is there anything you can look back on the last, 3 seasons with Coach Sanders there? Did that ever turn out to be an issue, a problem, bite you in the butt that you just were so open and recorded and shared everything?
It never did, but I think that's because of his individual personality. And so that's why, as much as TC Taylor and I, Coach Taylor, have a wonderful relationship, and how he's expressed he wants, the access of the pregame show to continue, that doesn't mean it'll be at the same fervor or level of Coach Prime, because it's, again, about personality. It's just not a right or wrong thing. Coach Prime doesn't mind the camera being on him 24/7, no matter what he's doing. Everybody in the world is not used to that, but you got to understand that's a space he's been in since he was a senior in high school, and the guy's 55 now. So that's just something how he operates under. And it never came to bite him or us or anybody else, because he's an open book anyway. Whether we record it or not, and you know this, Tyler, from your experience, if you ask him the questions, he's going to answer it. Now, he's not going to tell you what to ask him, but if you ask him the question, he's going to answer it. In most college programs, especially, they shy away from that kind of attention, but Prime came in and he totally understood it. When he looked at that recruit budget, he looked at the overall budget. One way to get away around that is use this social media and the power of it that we got right in the palms of our hands. So let's open up and show what we got and why people want to play here.
I don't get the feeling that other people are going to try to emulate that in large numbers. I still feel a very old school spirit, an old guard amongst a lot of the coaches, especially at the D1 level, that, and I think that's effective for how you run a team. But Neely, the internet is the great leverage between an institution that has multi-million dollars and an institution that does not, because the internet is all about whatever labor that you're willing to put into it.
I have seen in the close of this 2022 football season, whether it's Ohio State or Michigan or, a FAMU, I have seen more and more teams open up emulating what was done at Jackson State than I have before. You see a camera in the huddle during timeouts, and that content is produced after the game. That was started here at Jackson State. That was started here with Coach Prime. So I do think you're going to see more than we've seen before, but I'm in total agreement, Tolly. There's still an old guard kind of rule, like we don't show certain things in football that's going to be the mainstay. But I would expect more HBCUs or mid-majors with smaller recruiting budgets to really take advantage of the blueprint that Coach Prime put out, and that's utilizing social media.
I hope so. I hope that I'm wrong. Sometimes my cynicism just takes over. But Neely, I will say this. Jackson State was the first team, and I've covered HBCUs for a long time. That was the first team I can remember where I felt like I knew so many of the players. Whereas before, it's just like you're cheering for laundry. You're like, oh, there goes this school, they got on purple. There goes gold. I know the coach, and I kind of know the quarterback, and maybe but I mean, and I'll say this. I read that a lot in the comments on a lot of your content and our content, people that otherwise have never watched HBCUs a day in their life. A common theme was, I've seen these kids so much that I now have an emotional interest in them, and I care about whether they win or lose or they're successful. And a lot of the comments were like, I don't know why, but now I just care about these kids.
And that was the vision, particularly in this world or age of NIL, name, image, and likeness. Coach Prime understood you've got to get their image and their likeness out there so that people know their name, which adds value to it. And so it's not just about NIL deals while they're in college. It's about Fortune 500. It's about entrepreneur activities. It's about whatever they want to accomplish in life, because now they got 500,000 friends that they don't even know, but they know them because you got to see a part of their lives. And that was something Coach Prime said from Jump Street. Like, I want this to be about the student athletes. Use me, the hook, the bait. But once we get people looking this way because of Deion Sanders, we're going to put the focus on the student athletes and the players so that they can rise and get their own things going. And you now see players with their own YouTube channels. Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and even some of the receivers on Jack State. Just about every player now is getting a YouTube channel because they want people to follow them as they tell their own stories. And that was the vision and the dream, to give people a look inside so they have a vested interest in these individual players and help them accomplish their goal.
Oh, hold on now. Don't run me out of business here. That's too much access. Let's not seriously. No, I'm just kidding.
But really, Tolly, that's the initial response to it. But you think about how many channels are on TV and how many channels have shows going on at the same place. There's such a space for information and entertainment out there that a rising tide truly lifts all boats. because as long as you're bringing your perspective from your lens, and even if there's a camera right next to you shooting the same thing, well, they don't edit the way you edit, and they don't put a priority on one comment the way you put it on. There's enough market share in this space where the more we eat the pie just gets bigger. So it's something I think you're going to see continue. Even if individual programs don't take the Coach Prime route, you're going to see individual athletes through name, image, and likeness start to do it for themselves.
Yep. Kudos to the kids. And that's normal for them. What was, ABC, CBS, NBC was normal for us. Like, I think Shedeur Sanders talked about, the power of YouTube channels in one of his post-game comments and their representation at the Celebration Bowl. So that is the way they get down for sure. All right, Neely, you have been to Colorado. You've hung out with Coach Prime at his new home, his new digs. A little different, right?
Yeah, a little different. The temperature is a little different. The scenery is a little different. I'm used to looking out the window seeing asphalt. You look out the window there, you see mountains with snow on them. But it's a beautiful country, nice environment. The facilities are tremendous. I think he's going to do a bang-up job there. He's going to clearly, as he said, be able to change and impact more lives, and not just lives in general. I'm talking about Black lives. When you look at the number of coaches that he's brought in from Jackson State or Vincent Dancy from Valley, when you look at the number of players that have followed him there and the ones that he got in an early recruitment class, because we want to talk about how well T.C. Taylor did in his first recruitment class, a short and abbreviated one. Coach Prime did the same thing at the next Power 5 level. So I think the arrow is pointing up and up and up. He's going to do some tremendous things there. And yes, you can expect good old Uncle Neely and the pregame show from time to time to be in Colorado, sharing with you those stories about what Coach Prime is up to and what those assistant coaches that were here are up to, as well as players new and old are up to out there. Because I think, man, when you look back at, what a Walter Payton did at Jackson State in the 70s, and just think if someone could have followed him, Chicago Bears beyond, to tell those stories and send them back home, that these people are always connected to a place, and that place being Jackson State, and that being an HBCU, that no matter where they go in life, Coach Prime got his start at Jackson State University, and we're going to always be a part of that story. So HBCUs will always be a part of that story.
Neely, what did you say after the spring season and Coach Prime said, all right, some of these kids, we got to get some other kids. Some of these kids got to go. What did you say about kids then that left the program either on their own volition or, they kind of saw the writing on the wall? What did you say?
I think everybody, we kind of started this show with this, Todd. I think everybody has to seek the opportunity that is best for them. Just because someone is transferring does not mean it is about you, the person or place that they're leaving. Sometimes it's about them. And that's what the transfer portal is all about, allowing student athletes to do exactly what all the other students get to do. And that's to control their own destiny and bet on themselves and take a chance. So I'm majoring in marketing at Jackson State, and I think I want to go major in marketing at FAMU. There are no walls or barriers to stop that. I got to do what's in my best interest of success. And I think when Coach Prime came in, whether those players knew that they fit his system and they stuck around, which some did. He had some guys on his roster that he inherited and others that he brought in. Everyone gets to move on to a space that's best for them. And it's much like when Coach Prime took the job in Colorado. He's taking something that is in his best interest and that he can replicate for other people. And I don't see what the big negative is about that, because 99.9% of the people given that same choice would make that same decision.
All right. I tried to set you up. I did not do the great job. Let me give you a couple of key words. Neely, you said once a...
Oh, you should just ask me for the motto. Yeah, that is standard, man. Once a tiger, always a tiger. And Tolly, I'm not versed on the University of Florida. Their fan base may be celebrating it, but shame on them if they're not proud of what James Houston is doing in Detroit Lions. Because although James was only with us 1 year, once a tiger, always a tiger. His success with Detroit is our success. And so same thing with folks who go to Colorado or folks who stay here. I hope the people in Valley, are happy for Vincent Dancy, and Dancy happens to be a JSU alum as well. So once a tiger, man, always a tiger. This is something that you do not just get to quit. It is with you for life.
I just wanted to establish that you had that energy all along, and this wasn't.
All along. Yeah, look, Tolly, that energy has existed since my freshman year in 1989. You're a college guy, HBCU guy. Just because you come to school doesn't mean you finish school. And just because you finish school doesn't mean you finish with a degree. But who am I to say that a guy I was roommates with in the fall of 1989 and the spring of 90 who didn't finish school, that he ain't Jackson State. He was there with me. I don't care if he was there a semester or a year or got a degree or not. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger.
So let's transition here. This is a crazy, unique story that's happening at Colorado right now. You have an HBCU-centric coaching staff, players jumping directly from an HBCU to a Power 5 school. That don't happen. That don't happen, Neely. This is a unique story that I don't understand why people would not, hands down, be super invested in the success and at the very least interested just to see what happens.
Hey, Tolly, I agree with you so much, I'm going to cover it. Like, it is a story that has to be chronicled, a story that has to be told, and I don't care if it's 30 years later. You look at the young brother he was a young brother then, following Kanye with the camera. They just did the Netflix documentary. These are real lives that have transferred from an HBCU to a Power 5. And so whether it's Coach Prime or Coach Hart, one of his assistants, or Coach Mathis, one of his assistants, or Coach Brewster, one of his assistants, all at Jackson State, or players like Travis Hunter or Alejandro Mata, to see their impact and whether they regret it or celebrate it or it works well or doesn't work at all. It's a story that has to be seen and showed. And I'm proud to be and blessed to be in a space that I get to show it and tell it. So, I know there are going to be those out there saying, hey, man, it's Colorado now, leave that alone. It is forever attached to Jackson State.
Did you just call me Chuck, Neely? Did you let a Chuck reference slide in there?
No, there's no way I did that. We put a red flag do it, but you're not.
You know that commercial? we might have the red flag.
Here's the crazy thing about brand recognition and marketing. We know the commercial, but I can't tell you the product.
I can't either. I have no idea.
I didn't mean to call you Chuck.
My director says you're leaning. He says, sit up. What's your posture there, Neely? Neely, when I watch it though, I've seen Coach Prime with Uncle Shay Shay, with Shannon Sharp on his vlog. That was a super dope interview. And in all of the kind of coverage, Coach Prime is still dripping with JSU swag. And I think you just have to take the win. It's still, right now, until they get out there and play, he looks like the Jackson State coach that is now at Colorado. And people are constantly saying Jackson State. Whenever they talk about what's happening at Colorado, Jackson State is somewhere in the copy of that story. Neely, of course, we'd all love for Coach Prime to have been at Jackson State forever. No one thought with any common sense that was going to happen, but take the wins where you can get them. Jackson State's name is still popping, still rolling off of people's lips.
Well, in the places that it already popped, you can't unpop it. Let's not forget that Coach Prime was on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon wearing a Jackson State shirt. Let's not forget the number of times we've been mentioned or featured on Good Morning America. Let's not forget the Sports Illustrated covers or the partnership with Walmart that got you a turf field, or the partnership with the XFL and The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, that got you an XFL combine on your campus. Those things cannot be undone. And the people who saw that and got exposure and attributed that to Jackson State, you cannot unring that bell. And you're right, Tolly. Even now, a lot of the swag and what you see that Coach Prime walks with, it still looks and feels like Jackson State, which is only giving us more exposure. And when I say us, I literally mean Jackson State. You take this, for example. If a Neely goes out to Colorado and does some segments and 100,000 people watch it, and the next day he posts something sitting down with the quarterback at Jackson State, those same 100,000 people now get to see that as well. A rising tide lifts all boats. We're in this digital market space with media, and the more you can show and tell, the more you can show and tell. And we got to stop putting the cap on what's ours. Say, no, we're only going to do that for us. Because here's the fact of the matter. Jackson State has about 5,000 students, about 50,000 alums. At some point, you exhaust a growth base in that. And so if you really want to get support and you really want to show what you're doing and get people to invest, you've got to show your product to a grander, greater, larger audience. And sometimes that audience doesn't look just like you or live in the same region of the country you live in, but it's going to have a reciprocal ripple effect on the market share space that you're doing. I'm here for it, Tommy. I'm absolutely here for it.
Neely, the funniest thing I saw was somebody was trying to tell you online what you were and were not going to do at the pregame show. I said, did this become a publicly traded company? I missed the part where Neely didn't invent the pregame show.
Yeah, and we want everybody to stay engaged and everybody to share their opinion. But I love the ones who say I'm unsubscribing, and then all the other fans say, "All right, go ahead, bye." And you check the ticker, and you lost one and grew 300. So, a good friend of mine, a wise old sage that sits at the peak of a mountain, and you got to climb for 3 days to sit at his knee and talk to him. But a wise man named Tyler Carr once told me, "People don't lie about what they like."
No. And I that's the thing I want fans to understand. What you say does not matter. It's the fact that you said something is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter if you said, yay, boo, yes, no. The fact that you took the time to say something is all the machine needs. And that's what the machine operates on. That's it.
Engage. Yeah, it's that simple.
That's it. Yeah. If you don't like it, shut up. That's all you got to do.
That's hard.
That's all you have to do. Man, so what's next? What's next for you? Coming up, man, we got women's basketball, and men's basketball, of course. But, hey, look, man, you got to get the fans there. Mo was not happy. Mo was not happy coming back home after a road trip. He said he didn't feel the love, man. What's going on there, Neely?
I appreciate Mo Williams saying that. And I think you have to stoke the fan base, and you have to press buttons, and you have to make demands and raise the standard. But I also need the juxtaposition to be stated that, man, there was literally tornadoes in Jackson that day. And it was literally Christmas break for some people. And it was literally a Wednesday afternoon where other people had to work. I just don't know if you're going to pack out the Coliseum no matter who you're playing on a Wednesday afternoon during a tornado.
All right, we got the women. Do you anticipate this? What type of year? Because they continue to set the bar higher and higher for themselves. We got some fresh faces in there. Conference players are really about to get underway. Very competitive out of conference this year. Do you look for them to run the table again this year?
I believe in Coach Tamika Reed. I really do believe that those ladies will again represent the SWAC in the NCAA tournament. That means they're going to win the SWAC championship. Whether or not they do that in undefeated fashion remains to be seen. I think it will be done. I do believe on the men's side that once again, like in years past, SWAC championship kind of goes through Texas, through that Houston area. Because, Prairie View is dominant, Texas Southern is dominant, all corners coming on. So first-year coach Mo Williams is going to have some challenges in getting this first year going. I'm optimistic about it because what he brings to the table, he and his staff. But I do think that the Lady Tigers are positioned to repeat again.
All right, keep us up to date on the football calendar. Where do you land next? We've had early signing day. I know we got the kind of secondary signing day. When's your next, anticipation for on the field stuff, workouts? How's 2023 going to unfold for you on the football side?
Shortly thereafter, all of that going, January is going to be kind of quiet, if you will, if there's such a thing for HBCUs or Jackson State to be quiet. But the coaches are going to be on the road recruiting, getting ready for that mid-February National Signing Day. And once that's underway and done, you're going to look at late February, March for that strength and conditioning program to start back. And then going into spring ball. But between now and then, what I'm interested in seeing and sharing with the world out there through HBCU Game Day and the Pregame Show is as Coach T.C. Taylor's staff begins to flesh out. He has shared with me that he has his names in mind and has been talking to them. Some are settled and done, but they can't be announced yet because they're leaving other programs and contractual opportunities that have to close out. But you're going to be looking around that first 2 weeks of January that you're going to know who these position coaches are, and they're going to be out on the road recruiting and selling his dream and his vision for this revamped Tiger defense and Tiger offense that wants to three-peat, that not only wants to win another SWAC championship, but do it in dominant fashion again. So I think our next big story, Tyler, is just that, is who is T.C. Taylor's staff and who are they and their resumes and what they bring to the table to get the Tigers back in Atlanta again.
One more footnote before we go. There was so much love for the personality and the playing ability of Shiloh Sanders. And I know there was a big push. Like, Shiloh, you don't have to follow the rest of the family. You can stay. You can stay here, Shiloh. But what's his status? Now, he has to graduate before he can play again. I hate to ask you the NCAA rule book here, but where does Shiloh sit? I know he has a lot of fans out there.
Well, I think the way you set it up, everybody's going to get what they want. People wanted Shiloh to stay here and be here, and I think he's going to be here for the spring semester. He is literally going to become a Jackson State alum. He graduated from Jackson State in May. Now, whether he's participating in the Jackson State football program this spring or he's off to Colorado, once he leaves that graduation stage, that remains to be seen. But Shiloh Sanders will still be marching around with the J5. He calls himself J6 with the drum maker. So he's going to be one Sanders that they're all connected to Jackson State, but he is going to be an alum of Jackson State come May 2023.
Hey, change.org. Get the petition going. Keep Shiloh for one more year on the field. Keep that 21 out there. That would be awesome. But, of course, we wish everybody the best. Wherever you find happiness, I am happy for you. Neely, my man, it's so good to catch up with you. We had so much catering and food here at the studio during Celebration Bowl week, and we just had to eat your chicken wings, man. I'm sorry. You were too busy.
It breaks my heart because in all your text messages to let me know that the studio was available, you never mentioned chicken wings. That would have been the one thing that, you know what, forget this cold temp and this rain. I'm calling the Uber. But you left that detail out, Tom.
I'll be better next year, Neely. I promise.
Hey, let's all be better next year, Tyler. You know what we should do for 2023?
What's that?
We should do everything we did in 2022 times 2. Let's run it back, Tyler. How about some Tolly and Uncle Neely segments in 2023?
I am here for it. I think we should have our own podcast. We need to talk about things outside of just Jackson. You and I have such unique life experiences, and these gray hairs don't lie. You got them here, I got them here. We need more content with Tolly and Neely. I'm here for it, my man.
Hey, so look here, you out there watching, tag and say in the comments if you want more Tolly and Uncle Neely, because we just want your comments. So
don't give away all the secrets, Neely. All right, from Jackson, Mississippi, he's my man, Uncle Neely, Thee Pregame Show. You can check him out there. He'll make the dip up to the mountain. Stay warm the next time you hit Colorado, brother. And we look to see more of your content online and here at HBCU Game Day, man. Have a happy new year, brother. Talk to you soon.
Same to you, Tyler. Appreciate you.